around in 2022, but under what exact conditions remain unknown. Hello everybody, welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, ahead of, yes that's right, a playoff game. And of course, un partido de playoffs, porque esto es Miami Total Football Radio, the number one and most listened to Inter Miami podcast, providing you all the latest news, updates, analysis, opinions, inside information, general punditry, and much, much more. My name is Franco Panizo. I'm one of your usual co-hosts. If you're new around here, well, I'm usually joined by, or sometimes joined by, all three of the other co-hosts, but there's only one in the house accompanying me tonight, and that is, I can feel him glowing. I can feel him shining for so many reasons that we'll get to in a second. I am, of course, talking about Steve El Primo Brenner. Steve, how are you doing today? And why do I feel like you have a smile from ear to ear right now?
I'm glowing. You're making me laugh. I predicted they would finish sixth. I was the only one that had any faith. It's paid off. And that's just why people should always listen. You're not too negative, you see. Everyone else is too negative. I just came through with it in the end. That's slap bang on it. So, don't know. Not sure about Monday now, but I was definitely the champion there.
So, for those of you that may have missed our preseason predictions way back in February, we predicted then whether Inter Miami would make the playoffs or not. Jose and I, Andrea was not on the show. We're talking about all of the co-hosts here. Jose Armando was on, and he said no playoffs. And I think he said 9th, 10th, or 11th place for Inter Miami. I said no playoffs. I said 10th place for Inter Miami. Andrea Yanes was not on the podcast yet, so she did not put a prediction. In recent weeks, the three of us, Andrea, Jose, and myself, all three of us still did not think Inter Miami would make the playoffs. Steve was the only one.
Such non-believers. Non-believers.
Steve is the only one who remained optimistic and with faith throughout. And listen, full merit to you for not only predicting correctly that they would make the playoffs, but also for predicting that they would finish in 6th place. Though, to be fair, if we rewind the tape, I don't even think you believed what you were saying at that time. I think you just threw it out there, and you're like, oh, 6th, all right. And hey, listen, but at the end of the day, you got it right. So
I didn't have any money on it. I didn't have any money on it or anything.
Well,
That's
I'll
stupid.
give you a round of applause all
That's
the same
really bad.
because, listen, if you can get an MLS preseason prediction correct like that, then, I mean, that deserves a round of applause. So good job, Steve. Good job, Primo. You deserve your moment in the spotlight there for your fantastically accurate prediction. Although, hey, listen, I did say I think Gonzalo Higuain is going to be the MVP and the top goal scorer. I did say that in preseason, so, you know.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Little pat on the back there.
You get some right, you get some wrong. That's just the way it is.
All right. Well, we have a lot to talk about, Steve. A lot to talk about, and not just about your preseason predictions. We've got Inter Miami versus New York City FC coming up on Monday at Citi Field. So we need to talk about that game as well as, well, what happened in the lead up to deciding the venue for that match, because it was a big talking point over the past recent days. We've also not recorded in about a week, so we did not cover the last two games Inter Miami played, which were against Orlando City and CF Montreal. So we will analyze those games as well. And of course, we have to touch on the other game that was played in the past week and a half, which was Inter Miami's first ever media game. All right, Steve.
Oh.
Steve was.
I didn't even know what you were going to say then. I already erased it from my memory. So yeah, good.
Steve participated in it. We connected. We had a Miami Total Football Radio connection there for a goal on one nice play, and Steve also had a very poor.
Awful.
Horrendous.
Good chip by you.
Gaff.
The ball was there.
No. Don't describe it yet. Don't describe it yet. Don't defend yourself.
No, I'm just saying.
All I will say.
I was going to go in for it.
All I will say is that Federico Higuain, who was playing goalkeeper for one of the teams in the media game, for the opposing team, the team we were facing, Federico Higuain gave Steve a little bit of a comment after this horrendous gaff, horrendous miss, horrendous blunder. But we'll talk about that at the end of the pod, because we need to focus on Inter Miami and the many games that it has played or that it will play. So, Steve, A lot to talk about. Let's get to it. All right, Steve, and all right, listeners. Inter Miami will play New York City FC in the first round of the playoffs. New York City FC is the 3 seed. They will welcome Inter Miami, the number 6 seed, as you so correctly predicted, to town. Now, initially, it was expected that the game would be held at Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey, home of the New York Red Bulls, because the New York Mets, which play at Citi Field in New York City, and the New York Yankees, which play at Yankee Stadium in New York City, both of those venues were occupied, or were expected to be occupied due to playoff baseball. However, the New York Mets were eliminated from the postseason, and NYCFC pivoted, and now the game will be played at Citi Field. So if you're making plans, make sure you head to Citi Field in Queens, in New York, because the game will not be played at Red Bull Arena anymore. It has been officially announced after a lot of back and forth, a lot of uncertainty. The game will be played on Monday night at Citi Field. Okay, I've said that a few times there just to make it crystal clear of where the location is. Steve.
Citi Field, yes.
Steve, what are your thoughts overall here? I know we've talked a little bit about it, and we as we tend to do, we've disagreed a little bit here with regards to the overall situation, but just give me your thoughts on it being played at Citi Field and this whole ordeal that just happened over the last 3-4 days.
No, it was stupid. And Phil Neville, we went down to the press conference today, and he was angry about it. And he had a point. It's the Wednesday of a game. The game is supposed to be on Monday, and you still don't know where you're going to play. He said it's not. It said where we're actually playing doesn't bother me. We could play on top of the Empire State Building for all I care. But what probably people don't understand is we've got a travelling party of 55 people to get hotel rooms in New York. It's near impossible. They've already lost a booking. They just need to know. I don't understand why the league did step in initially anyway and just sort of say, apparently it was a third party, the ticket, when the ticket news went out that it was going to be at Citi Field, that was the third party sort of branch of NYCFC's sort of marketing department or wherever that put it out there without actually having checked probably that it was going to happen. But then the league sort of let it fester. It was just like a weird thing. But it's not ideal, and I think MLS should insist that all playoff games, they hope are going to be seen worldwide, should be at soccer-specific stadiums, not at baseball stadiums, and certainly, sort of dealt with better than that. So I understand why he was a bit pissed off, but he says that they'll go to win the game whenever, and they will do. It's just it was an unwelcome kind of distraction for them, I guess, to deal with. But at least they know now. So and the game's not till Monday night, so it's not too bad.
So I agree with you that it's Bush League that the decision comes this late into the build-up or this late into the run-up to the playoff game. I'm
not saying it matters hugely. I'm just sort of saying...
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. Where I disagree is with Inter Miami's very vocal, very public statement of displeasure towards what NYCFC did. You can express, dismay at the overall thing. Like I get it to an extent, right? And I still agree, right? It's Bush League that the stadiums changed on that late of a notice because I'm sure there were fans for both teams that already made arrangements, especially people here in South Florida that bought tickets to go to New Jersey, hotel.
It's not too much of a muck-up, though. I mean, you would be in New York anyway. So
it's a slap in the face of the fans. It's a slap in the face of the fans that are planning. It's not what a professional sports league should be doing,
sure.
Right? So I agree with that. But I don't agree with Inter Miami making such a big deal about it because it comes off to me. It comes off to me as a TS. Phil Neville talked about logistics, and there's definitely an element of that here. But when you saw the tweet that Phil Neville had on Sunday and the response Jorge Mas had, it seemed like Inter Miami wanted just to play on a soccer field because it wants to play on a soccer field because that will give it a better chance of winning. And let's not forget, if it is played at Red Bull Arena...
That's better though, isn't it? That's better to play on a proper
Okay, it's better.
Both been to Red Bull Arena.
But who is the home team? Who won the right to decide where the home game is?
No, true, and they weren't disputing that. We've both been to Red Bull Arena. It's a great place.
Would I rather watch a game at Red Bull Arena than at Yankee Stadium, a soccer game, a football game? Yes, absolutely.
Or
Would I rather
cricket.
play a football game if I was a professional athlete? Absolutely. It's pristine conditions. But guess what? And for people that might not know the New York area that well, New York, New Jersey area that well, Harrison, New Jersey it's a good trip away from Manhattan proper. And on a Monday night,
we've both done it. You get the PATH train from Manhattan. It's not too bad if you get the right train. It's just annoying. I went there for
it's
a couple
enough.
of years.
It's enough to prevent people from going. It's enough to prevent people from going.
No, I disagree. Sorry, I disagree with that. It's not that bad.
I mean, look at the Red Bulls' attendance and look at New York City FC's attendance.
Sure. It's easy to get to Yankee Stadium anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it does prevent people from going, and that's something that New York City FC fans that once NYCFC came into the league, a lot of soccer fans that were like, "Oh, well, I just didn't go to Red Bull because it's too difficult to get out there. It's too time consuming, etc."
It's annoying. It's annoying. So, it can be annoying.
Okay, so
especially when you get on the wrong train.
It sounds like that's happened to you a couple times. But look, so NYCFC, they earn the right based on the regular season finish to choose where the game is. And I agree that it's Bush League to change it. Again, I get it, especially for the fans that have to make travel arrangements and all that. But
Phil Neville made the point, in 4 years' time, the US are hosting the
That has
World
nothing
Cup.
to do. That was ridiculous on his part because
that's a story. I went with the story threatening the reputation of the game in the US. It's just like Mickey Mouse.
It's just, okay. Again, I agree it's Bush League, but that's a nonsense comparison because U.S. Soccer will run the World Cup. U.S. Soccer will run the World Cup. MLS does not run the World Cup. So playing at Yankee Stadium is not a possibility. One thing has nothing to do with the other. MLS has nothing to do with the World Cup. MLS has nothing to do with who's organizing the World Cup and the stadiums that will be used in the World Cup. It has nothing to do with that. So that comparison by Phil Neville is...
man. It's all linked. It's all linked up.
Here we go. With
it is.
It's not linked. It's not linked. It's not linked at all. MLS has nothing to do with the World Cup. But anyway, okay. I'm trying to spit the point out here, but I can't get it out. So, look, overall, NYCFC earned the right to decide where the home game is. Yes, it's Bush League to change it on short notice, especially for fans that have made travel plans. But if NYCFC feels that they will have more fans, their fans, in the stands at Citi Field, because that's more accessible than Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey, then they have every right to be able to make that decision because they won home field advantage.
Sure. Okay, but I'm also saying that as a team that are not able to use their home stadium because of for whatever reason, then that sort of just debilitates them slightly, doesn't it? And MLS should insist that it's a...
No, MLS should not insist. MLS should not insist.
I think they should.
No,
I think they should.
No, I 100% disagree with that. No,
it looks crap at Citi Field. It looks crap, doesn't it?
No, I would. It doesn't matter. It looks like crap. But to say MLS needs to insist, I would wholeheartedly disagree with you there.
I think the league should. Yeah, for sure.
I would wholeheartedly disagree with you there because listen, and this is the overall point. I think this is the biggest point, and I haven't even gotten to it yet. We're in this mess, like. As soccer observers, Inter Miami's in this mess, New York City FC's in this mess, MLS is in this mess. All of us that are, fans and observers, we're all in this whole predicament because MLS allowed New York City FC into the league back in 2014 without a stadium plan. And they have not gotten a stadium plan in place since. So they're stuck at Yankee Stadium, which is... they rent that place out. I forget how much they pay per game. It's a hefty amount.
Abu Dhabi millions, mate. It doesn't matter. They wanted to get involved in MLS, and that's why
But because of the situation, you have incidences like this. You have problems like this that arise because MLS, and this falls on MLS. This doesn't fall on an NYCFC as much. MLS approved NYCFC to come in at Yankee Stadium, knowing that they didn't have a stadium plan in place. So, guess what? This is on MLS. Now, why should MLS insist that they should play not in a baseball stadium? Again, I agree that playing in a soccer stadium is better from an aesthetics point of view. I agree that it's better for the overall product on the field. But if you're going to start down that road of, well, it needs to be at a soccer stadium, then what about all the American football stadiums that are used? New England Revolution playing in a football stadium. Atlanta United, they play in a American football stadium. Yes, it has soccer dimensions, but et cetera, et cetera. So you could make, if you want to start down that road, then, it's very easy to say, well, no, and then every game should be played in a soccer-specific stadium. It's just not the reality of MLS today. Maybe in 20 years, 30 years, okay, but not today. But I don't want to get so I'll let you chime in there, but I don't want to get stuck on just this one
No,
thing. 'Cause we
I'm,
have other
I'm
things to talk about.
flabbergasted by your position on it, really. So I won't bother anymore.
How much does it matter? How much does it matter what field they play on, whether it's Red Bull
It doesn't
Arena or
matter.
Citi
No,
Field?
it doesn't really matter. But it's just, I just think it's just badly organised, and it just,
I agree with that.
It gives them an extra headache. We were talking about it today when it was like needless to talk about. So discussions that should be happening behind closed doors, and then we just get told it rather than us sort of living through it. Them saying, "Oh, we don't know. We haven't heard from MLS yet," and it was already like, how have they not heard from MLS in the space of like 18 hours? It's just, that's what they were saying. That's what Miami was saying.
So I heard on Tuesday.
Also, just to be clear, we're making a bit of a big deal out of it. It's not that a big deal in the end of the day.
Whoa. I don't think we made a big deal out of it. I think Inter Miami made a big deal out of it very publicly.
No, we were involved in the story. No, I think it was a fun sort of thing.
Really?
I don't know. It was
really.
We haven't really had much news down there, I guess. Just speaking here, totally with like a journalist hat on, but yeah, we got sort of stuck into a bit of a little news story, so that was quite nice. As as a journalist, anyway.
Steve, do you really believe the stuff you're saying right now, or are you just like pulling my leg? Because there's you cannot say that Inter Miami did not make a big deal about it when you have the owner of the team tweeting out that the game will not be played. He says it with a very authoritative delivery on Twitter, and he was responding to Phil Neville on Twitter, and he says, this is Jorge Mas, quote, "No way this game is being played at a baseball stadium that isn't their home field. ... If they don't want to play at a soccer-specific stadium, they should move it to the Meadowlands instead."
Oh, well, he's got a point.
How does he have a point? Why is that a point? Why? Because Inter Miami wants to play it in a soccer-specific stadium because they think it better suits them, or because
I just think it should be. I just think it should be played in a soccer-specific stadium, just for many different reasons. We've both been to Red Bull Arena. It's a great place to play football. They should just play it there. It's just better. It's rubbish it's rubbish at it. I covered cricket at Citi Field. But it's a baseball stadium, just like Yankee Stadium is as well.
Okay, so let's take teams that play during the regular season and that have their home field advantage at certain stadiums. Let's take that away because El Primo needs to see a better product on the field during the playoffs while he sits at home on his TV. No, man, no. The teams that play at home. That's their home field advantage. It'd be like saying, "Oh, well, South Florida's too hot, so they can't play there because it's too hot. So now you need to move it because it's not good for the product." Like your home field advantage is your home field advantage, regardless of what it is. We're in the situation because MLS allowed NYCFC into the league without a stadium plan. And this is not the first time that NYCFC has been involved in some incident like this. If I'm not mistaken, when they were playing CONCACAF Champions League, they played at Red Bull Arena. I think they played one game in LA. So this is a byproduct of MLS's decision to bring NYCFC into the league. Now you just have to deal with it. MLS has to deal with it. Other teams have to deal with it and suffer the consequences of Major League Soccer's decision. This is on MLS, less so than Inter Miami, NYCFC. Although, again, I think Inter Miami clearly wanted NYCFC to have as little home field advantage as possible to try to, raise their chances of winning the game, which is understandable. But I thought it was much ado about nothing because it was out of their control, completely out of their control. They could make some fuss and they could talk about it publicly and get the fans.
Yeah, but that's Jorge Mas, isn't it? He kind of shoots from the hip and he's wholehearted and loves to get stuck in. That's just his nature, isn't it? I guess he wanted to have a go back, but he did it on Twitter. I asked if we could speak to him at the press conference, but I didn't receive a comment back saying yes or no. So I think that was a no. But yeah,
you think that was a no? I'm pretty sure that's a no.
Yeah, that was a definite.
It's like calling a girl and being like, "Hey, do you want to go on a date?" And she just doesn't get back to you. Well, yeah, there's your answer, Steve. I'm pretty sure you have your answer. Okay.
The Jorge Mas wasn't given to us, unfortunately. But no, Phil Neville had a go, and rightly so. At the time, we didn't know. Now we do, and that's it. They're not going to, it's not going to use it as an excuse. It was just a weird sort of thing, really. I was going to ask you if it's like a sort of United versus City kind of thing. The fact that he played for United and they're obviously owned by Man City, but I didn't in the end.
Well, let's talk about NYCFC and the actual matchup, okay? Because we've talked about this stadium ordeal and this whole thing for a good bit here. What can we expect from New York City FC? A team that beat Inter Miami 2-0 at Yankee Stadium earlier this year, but that lost 3-2 at Drive Pink Stadium to the South Florida side. So, look, NYCFC finished in third place in the Eastern Conference, as I mentioned before. They had 16 wins.
Lost the best player.
7 draws, 11 losses. They scored 57 goals, gave up 41. So, plus 16 goal differential. They did lose Tati Castellanos mid-season as he was sold abroad or loaned abroad. And yet they've still managed to finish in the top 3. Now, they are dealing with some injuries, including most notably, perhaps, to Thales Magno, who is one of their key attackers, a player that gave Inter Miami fits even in that game down here in Fort Lauderdale. So he's a question mark. And again, we're recording this pod on a Wednesday, so there's a lot of time for him to potentially recover and make it onto the game day roster and on the field on Monday. But as of right now, he's a question mark. And that, if he doesn't play or he doesn't start, that's a big boost for Inter Miami's chances. Okay, Steve, Inter Miami comes into this game, and we will dive into the 2 matches in a bit. Coming off a win against Orlando City and then a loss on the last day of the regular season against CF Montreal. And the game against CF Montreal was completely different than the game against Orlando City because they looked pretty poor. And you were there to see it live and in person. So, what do you expect from Inter Miami going into this game? What type of team do you expect? They're coming off a loss. It was an ugly loss at home. They're in the playoffs, yes, but what kind of Inter Miami side do you expect? Do you expect an attacking team? Do you expect a defensive-minded team? Do you expect a team that's going to go for it? It's high on confidence, low on confidence. What do you expect from Inter Miami on Monday night at Citi Field?
No, I think they're going to go for it. I think they just defended really badly. I thought for both of the opening goals against Montreal. Montreal just played them off the park. Really, they were just never in it. Just Mabika and Lowe were just poor together. They're good players. I like them. I do like them both. I think they do have potential, but they were pretty bad, weren't they? I think certainly in the first half they're all over the place. And Wanyama was just best player on the park. Him and Kone out front, he was decent, and Miami just weren't in it. But I don't think it matters too much, man. They go into the next game full of confidence. He said today, we're not gonna die not trying. We're gonna have a go. I love talking about Man United, Fergie, and all that kind of stuff. And he said Ferguson wouldn't send the team out, to lose. You've got to just try and win, especially even in these kind of games. So. I think they'll have a go. They'll have a go. Maybe the pitch will see what the pitch is like. But I think they'll have a go, mate. But it's not going to be easy.
So it's not going to be easy, and it will depend a lot on the personnel NYCFC has, as well as the personnel that Inter Miami has, because we have to note Alejandro Pozuelo, Leonardo Campana, they're both nursing injuries, and Pozuelo did some training again with the team on Wednesday. After missing the last 2 games, Campana's still not training with the side.
He said today they both.
Who is he? Who is he?
Phil.
Okay, all right. Just making sure, because sometimes you say he, and I know who you're talking about, but you're making me assume.
Capital H. Yeah, Phil.
Okay, Phil said.
No, the Campana and Pozuelo, but should be okay. I think they were confident that Campana was going to be okay anyway. Certainly for the playoffs after, he hurt his hamstring, so they thought he was going to be okay, but he's going to miss 1 match. And, he hopes Pozuelo as well. So, no, I think that he needs them back, to be honest. It'd be a real shame if both of them are injured or not at full fitness, because that would really hurt them, because they're a team that haven't got a lot of brilliant players, and they're definitely their better ones. So, yeah. And
now another player that I think is a question mark is Ame Mabika, who's been starting as of late as the center back partner for Damian Lowe, because he was clutching for his hamstring in the second half of the game against CF Montreal, and he was eventually subbed out. So is he going to be 100%? Can he start on Monday, or is it going to be rookie Ryan Saylor that has to get the nod as a result of Mabika's status? So we'll see. I
like Mabika. He's a good talker as well, isn't he, Mabika?
He's a very good talker. Very good talker.
Yeah, he is. He's an intelligent guy. I like him. He's a good guy.
And we'll touch on something he said post-game after the CF Montreal game in a little bit. But, it depends which Inter Miami players are available. I agree with you. I think Pozuelo needs to be on the field. More so than Campana, Pozuelo needs to be on the field. I think he will be on the field. I think he plays in this game because it's a win-or-go-home game. You either come out on top some way, shape, or form, even if it has to be on penalty kicks, or your postseason run comes to an end very, very quickly. So I think that they'll push him to play. They'll push him to go. I know Phil Neville today in the press conference said that they won't play unless they're 100%. He was talking about Campana and Pozuelo. But, at this point in the season, you're probably going to push them even if they're not 100%. And they'll probably push themselves, because, again, it's do or die time. It's win or go home time. So I expect Pozuelo to play. Not so sure about Campana. I would say probably not. Probably not. I know Inter Miami says that they're optimistic about his chances of playing, but he's still not training. And I mean, look, he's got also the World Cup, something that he's set as a goal for himself since the start of the year. He's got the World Cup potentially on the horizon in a few weeks' time. Is he really going to push himself if he's not 100%, or he doesn't feel comfortable enough to play? Yes, it's an important playoff game. Yes, his club matters as well. But if he's not healthy, he's not healthy. And you just, I know that's kind of contradicting what I just said overall, but I think Pozuelo's in a healthier place. He's already trained. Campana has not yet. So, anyway, I think Inter Miami, Phil Neville said today that they will go for it. They will try to blitz NYCFC, that they will try to attack. And that's been the recipe for success for Inter Miami for much of the last 2-3 months. And I do think that that's the way to go about it. I think that gives Inter Miami the best chance of winning, is to play aggressively and try to dictate the tempo and try to impose its will on NYCFC. But I don't know if Phil Neville's going to do that. And Jose, it's a shame that Jose Armando's not on the podcast this week, because he was debating with me in the press box during the regular season finale about how Phil Neville would approach the playoffs. And Jose thinks, that Phil Neville will go defensive minded. And in the moment, I was like, no way. And I would still say, I think, if I had to bet, I think Inter Miami comes out aggressive and attack minded. But I could see Phil Neville making some adjustments. I could see Phil Neville maybe dropping the lines a little bit, maybe not being so aggressive, especially if Campana is not available. I could see them maybe taking their foot a little bit off the pedal. I think that would be a mistake, but I could see that happening because now it's playoff time. And playoff games do get managed a little bit differently, or they tend to. But I again, to reiterate, just go for it, Inter Miami. You've made the playoffs. We'll talk about what a great achievement that is. But, from here, anything from here is icing on the cake, or a cherry on top. Anything else from here. Hey, and I know Inter Miami, they're competitive. They want to make some noise. They want to try to go as far as they can. They've talked about even MLS Cup and trying to do that not only for Gonzalo Higuain, who's retiring, but just the team in general. So, okay, yes, that I get that desire is there, but just go for it and go and see what happens. See where the chips fall. Don't speculate. Don't fall into a counter-attacking team or parking the bus and looking to hit in transition. Just do what's given you success to this point. Do what's led you here. I think that's attacking.
That's what he said today.
Phil Neville did acknowledge, I think last week it was, that some of the stuff he says publicly to us in the media, sometimes it's a lie. Sometimes he's trying to throw us off course, and he's trying to throw the opposing teams, which will consume what's being said. He tries to throw them off course, and he acknowledged that. He acknowledged that last week. So, again, you could take it at face value or not. It could go either way because, again, he has not always been the most forthcoming when it comes to being honest about injuries and game plans and whatnot, which is completely in his right as a head coach of the team and how he decides to maneuver in the media. No problem with that. So I'm just saying it's possible that he says that they're going to go for it, and then he comes out with a completely different game plan. But I agree. I think that they will go for it, maybe with some adjustments, and I think that they should go for it. Give yourself the best chance to win. I don't think sitting back and inviting pressure from New York City FC is the way. This team has been good with Gonzalo Higuain scoring goals and being set up by Pozuelo, and Ariel Lasser's been in good form as of late. So play to your strengths. Try to outscore the other team, even if it's a goal fest, even if it's a shootout. Because I don't think you're going to be able to sneak out a 1-0 type of win against NYCFC by being defensive minded. I don't think so. But anyway, key to the game, Steve. What does Inter Miami need to do to extend its postseason run past the first round of the playoffs?
Would certainly defend. They need to defend much better than they did on Sunday against Montreal. Need to move the ball quicker. They were just sort of ponderous. Yedlin didn't have one of his best days. I think so many of them had off days, but Yedlin in particular, normally he's pretty decent going back up and down the wing, and his crossing usually good, but it just it wasn't happening for him, and a lot of their plays sort of fell down on that right hand side when he kept getting the ball. But yeah, they just need to improve on all aspects. Like I say, Beaker and Lowe sometimes together they look ponderous and just a bit sort of not that secure. But there have been performances when they put it together well and they look dominating. They're two big guys that should be cleaning up really at the back. We spoke to Damien Lowe earlier yesterday, and he was in pretty relaxed mood. I don't think he really gets stressed, but they're both sort of big units, so they should be able to dominate sort of strikers really. So they need to prove in that respect.
So my key to the game is taking their chances. If Inter Miami takes their chances and they're clinical enough in this game, I think they can see it out. I think they can win this one. I think they can pull off the upset. But they have to be clinical. That means Gonzalo Higuain, that means Ariel Lasser, that means Alejandro Pozuelo, that means to whoever the chances fall to, they need to put most of those away. Because I think there's going to be goals in this game. I don't think this is going to be a 0-0 game, a cagey affair where the two teams are feeling one another out. I think both teams are going to attack. I think both teams are going to try to impose themselves on one another. And that's going to lead to chances. And that's going to lead, I think, to goals. Now watch. My prediction will not be as good as your preseason one was, and this ends up being like a 0-0 game that goes to penalty kicks, and then one team wins it from the penalty mark. But I expect goals in this game. I'm predicting goals in this game, and I think Inter Miami's best chance is to try to outscore NYCFC in an attack-minded posture, an attack-minded approach. You get 3 to 4 clear-cut chances, you put 2 or 3 away, I think you stand a good chance at advancing. You're going to give up chances at the other end, surely, but put yours away, put the pressure on NYCFC, and you have a very good chance at moving on. That's just what I think. That's my key to the game. All right, let's switch gears because we still have 2 more Inter Miami games to talk about. And let's start with, usually we go with the most recent, but let's go with the first one. Let's go in chronological order here because Inter Miami played Orlando City last Wednesday in the latest edition of what I call the Sunshine Clásico, El Clásico del Sol, at Drive Pink Stadium. And Inter Miami prevailed 4-1. Leonardo Campana scored the opener in the opening seconds. I forget exactly what second it was. It's the fastest goal in it.
34th, was it? 34 seconds?
34, 35, maybe 39. I'd have to go back and look. But he set the record for fastest goal in Inter Miami history with a great lobbed effort or chipped effort from 3/4 of the field over Pedro Gales, the Peruvian international. Heck of a goal. It sent Drive Pink Stadium, which was pretty full for a Wednesday, into a frenzy. Everyone was on their feet practically in the 4 stands, and it was just a dream start for Inter Miami. A dream start for a commanding victory because Campana scores in the first minute. Higuain then adds a second in the 38th. Higuain makes it 3-0 in the 52nd. Off of a penalty kick. Inter Miami then scores a 4th through Ariel Lasser in the 56th. Orlando City gets on the board in the 71st minute, and that's their consolation prize. But this game was a one-sided affair, and it punctuated and booked Inter Miami's ticket to the postseason. And it's a tremendous effort, a heck of a job from Phil Neville and his staff and the players and the staff and everyone involved, because I did not see this coming, and a lot of people truthfully did not see this coming, and I know a lot of listeners did not see this coming. I know there were some that had the faith, like you, Primo, that Inter Miami would make the playoffs, but there were a lot that did not, including myself. So listen, I'm critical when I think criticism is fair and just, and I will give credit when it's due. And Phil Neville has done a tremendous job with a team that had sanctions, with a team that on paper isn't one of the most talented in the Eastern Conference, but they're a team. He got a team to fight for one another, to play for one another. In the run-up to this game, I don't think they played their best soccer, but they found ways to win games. This one, they very, very deservedly came out on top because they were the better side from start to finish, and it was their best game at the best moment because this game guaranteed a spot in the playoffs had they won it, and they did. So your thoughts on the overall victory and Inter Miami making the playoffs, accomplishing something that a lot of us, not you, thought they would do.
No, they did it in a bit of style as well, didn't they? Scored some goals, and they've just been on a decent run. Fifth game on the spin, best record they've had so far in terms of an unbeaten run. And no, it was just a nice way to seal, what has been Phil Neville's minimum goal this season is to get into the playoffs. That's what they've been searching for. And I think if they were stinking out the league like Toronto or Chicago right in the bottom, then there'd be a lot of questions being asked. But I think to have got to this point, considering everything they've done, I think they've done a decent job and definitely just turned it around. Wasn't it after the defeat against Chicago? You thought that was it, season over?
I did think it was over, and I stayed with the thought that I didn't think they would make it, and the reason for that I will explain myself just to make it clear. Inter Miami was winning games that they weren't particularly playing well in. Like, think about it. They won one late against DC. They came back and beat Columbus. Yeah, they were the better team in the second half. Inter Miami was not so much in the first half. That was that weather delay game or the lightning delay game. So they weren't necessarily playing winning soccer from the run of play, but they were finding ways to come out on top, which is a sign of a good team. One sign of a good team. But I just didn't think they would consistently be able to pull out the necessary victories. I did say I thought they needed to win 4 out of the last 5. That's exactly what they did. They won 4 in a row before losing the 5th, and they got into the playoffs that way as Columbus had a complete disaster, an incredible free fall in terms of where they were and in terms of how it happened, because they consistently found ways to lose games or drop points by giving up late goals. Inter Miami was the opposite. Inter Miami found ways to win games or get points by scoring late on. So I didn't think Inter Miami would be able to maintain that winning formula given how they were playing. But like I just said, in the biggest game of the season, Inter Miami delivered its best performance of the year. Its most thorough, its most comprehensive, its most dominant showing. Orlando City was practically a non-factor for much of that game. You didn't even know that Facundo Torres was on the field or Pereira. Like you didn't even realize. You couldn't even, if you didn't know what team that was. If you took away the purple jerseys and took the names off the backs of their jerseys and you just gave them black shirts, you wouldn't have known who those players were because none of them looked like themselves really. Nobody. And that's a testament to Inter Miami and a testament to Phil Neville. And just the manner in which they got up for the game and the manner in which they delivered and performed. So I've been critical of Phil Neville. I think he deserves his praise here. He got the job done. And he got this team to really buy into what he was selling and what he was trying to produce there out on the field. And I think, look, one prime example you can look at is Ryan Saylor and Ame Mabika. Mabika's a second-year center back. Ryan Saylor's a first-year center back professionally. They've alternated next to Damian Lowe at times this year, and they've mostly held up. So I think that's a testament to, yes, not only the players for doing their part and performing and delivering good performance levels, but also for the coaching staff for knowing the right moments, again, with some exceptions, the right moments for when each one should start, the matchups for when each one should start. I think that, there's merit there for the coaching staff for Phil Neville. So a massive accomplishment for the organization. I don't think it can be undersaid or undersold because I don't think it should be understated because what they did with how hamstrung they were financially is a great achievement. That's what their goal was. That's what they were striving for. They have now accomplished that. But back to the game. Inter Miami lost Leonardo Campana to an injury in the first half. And you touched on it earlier. It's a hamstring. Inter Miami said they were hopeful that he would be back for the first game of the playoffs. It's not looking likely, at least as of right now. The World Cup is on the horizon. I mentioned that earlier. Steve, what are your thoughts on Leonardo Campana's injury? What are your thoughts on whether you think we see him in this playoff? I mean, because it's a hamstring. It's a muscle injury. It takes some time to recover from. And if he does go back out there, and not at 100%, and maybe not even close to 100%, maybe that's what I should say. Maybe if he goes back out there not close to 100% to try to push it, he could re-aggravate that injury, and then you're talking about very possibly risking missing the World Cup if he's called up. So your thoughts on the injury? Do you think we'll see Campana?
When he first did it, they thought that it wasn't too serious. They definitely ruled him out of the next game, the Montreal game, but they were confident that he was always going to come back for the playoffs. And he, like I say, he said that today. But he hasn't been training properly, so he has been injured. He's definitely had the World Cup on his mind as well. So it's not, it hasn't been in, great health as he the whole season. So it's, so definitely should be a worry for him. So it's just some unfortunate timing, but it's a long old season.
This is not inside information. This is just my speculation, my sensation. I don't think he makes it in time for Monday. Could be wrong. I've been wrong before, clearly. So
yes, many times.
many times. Hey, listen, that's what this podcast is for, brother. Our opinions. We put ourselves out there. We put our hands up. No, we put our hands to the flame. Sometimes you get some things right. Sometimes you get some things wrong. It's about getting more right than you do wrong. Primo. So anyway, let's
we get more right than wrong.
What voice was that? Are you doing a commercial or something?
That's the sort of advertising voice, yeah.
So anything else you want to add about this game against Orlando City? We've touched on it, briefly here. We've grazed the surface, but not gone, very deep dive. Again, I think it was Inter Miami's best performance, and I gave Phil Neville credit in the post-game press conference. I did it on social media afterwards. I've criticized him a whole bunch. I know I keep saying it, but now in this moment, he deserves the praise because he's taken a team that's not that great on paper, and they finished 6th in the Eastern Conference. They made the playoffs, and look, anything from here for them is just it's just a bonus. It's just a bonus. They've accomplished what they set out to do. Anything here from this point forward, and I know they're going to want to compete and they're going to want to make a run, but anything from here on out is just extra. It's just extra. They've done enough to celebrate. It was a party at DraftKings Stadium. Oh, by the way, let's talk about that because that was a lot of fun. I think it was one of the most fervent and one of the most exciting games to cover at Inter Miami or of Inter Miami at DraftKings Stadium because you heard the oles ring out, which we've heard only a handful of times in Inter Miami's short history. Inter Miami was doing this to its rivals. So, how much fun Inter Miami fans were having. It was a good game, very good game, a memorable game, and Inter Miami deserves all the plaudits and all the credit for that performance on that night. So, switching gears, and I didn't even do the lineup. I have to give you the lineup. I can't not do the lineup. This was Inter Miami starting lineup against Orlando City. Drake Callender in goal. DeAndre Yedlin, Damian Lowe, Ame Mabika, Christopher McVeigh, the back four. They had the midfield diamond, Gene Mota as the 6, Indiana Vasilev and Robert Taylor as the more advanced midfielders, and then Bryce Duke as the 10, and then up top, Leonardo Campana and Gonzalo Higuain. By the way, something we didn't even mention here, and it has to be mentioned, I can't believe I almost messed up. Inter Miami did not have Pozuelo in this game. Inter Miami did not have Gregory in this game because he was out due to yellow cards accumulation. And they lost Leonardo Campana to an injury. And despite all that, they still managed to completely throttle Orlando City in a very one-sided affair. One of the best performances Inter Miami's had in their short history. Not only on the season, but in their short history. That speaks volumes to, again, the job the players did, as well as the coaching staff. Because you missing 2 key players, 2 regular starters, including your captain and your number 10, and you still, cruise to the finish line, essentially. So, kudos to Inter Miami for that. Now, switching gears. Inter Miami played CF Montreal once again at Drive Pink Stadium on Sunday, this past Sunday. And they suffered a 3-1 loss. A 3-1 defeat. Georgi Mihailovic with the goal in the 5th minute. Lassi Lapalainen, a goal in the 8th. Then Kai Kamara made it 3-0 before halftime with a strike in the 36th. Inter Miami scored late through an own goal from Joel Waterman, which was produced in part due to a Harvey Neville cross, the debuting Harvey Neville, which we'll talk about in a second or in a moment. But this was complete opposite of what we saw on Wednesday, and I can sing all the praises about Wednesday's game. Here I'm going to be very critical about the performance. And it's not just because mistakes were made, it's not just because they lost. It was the manner in which they lost. In a game that did have meaning for them. If Inter Miami had won and the New York Red Bulls had lost, which they did not, they won. But if that had happened and the games were played at the same time, then Inter Miami would have had a home playoff game. So there was something significant for Inter Miami to play there. But they had a very big drop-off in their performance levels. Now, before the post-game press conferences, I went to the locker room. Because either you go to the press conferences or you go to the locker room. Like, it has to be one or the other normally because they tend to have availability at the same time.
I was with you, yeah.
So we went to the locker room. And we did not go to the press conference, so we did not hear what Phil Neville said, and we did not hear what Robert Taylor said. But one of the questions I asked Ime Mabika, I asked Drake Callender, I asked DeAndre Yedlin, was about if Wednesday's accomplishment of getting to the finish line of their set goal, of their stated goal of making the playoffs, of qualifying, of reaching the playoffs, of clasificando a la postemporada, if that, maybe made them psychologically, take their foot off the pedal, lose some of that intensity against CF Montreal. If they got a little complacent. And some players said, yeah, they agreed with that assessment. And Phil Neville, again, I wasn't in the room to hear him say this at the time, but Phil Neville said the same thing, admittedly, saying like there was an emotional drop-off. They had this massive high on Wednesday of reaching the postseason, whooping their rival's tail, and then in the regular season finale, they just did not have that same intensity. They did not have that same hunger and desire. I think that's a bit of a problem. Because there was still something there to play for. And I understand as a human and as a person, like you accomplish something you've set out for. It's hard. It's easy to have now, to relax a little bit, to be like, okay, I accomplished what I was looking for. Now I can chill out a little bit. But these are professional athletes. This is a professional team. Yes, it's a mixed team. I won't say a young team, but it's a mixed team with a lot of young players. They should have done a better job of preparing the team and being up for this game against CF Montreal. They should have done a better job at that, in my opinion. Because the Inter Miami team we saw out there in that first half looked like a team that didn't look anything like the team that we've seen over the past 4 games before that. It was a team that was making mistakes, that was lacking intensity, and it just did not look like a good cohesive unit. I think they did have an emotional let-off. I think that they were not up for the game in the same manner that they have been when their backs have been against the wall, when they're, because Inter Miami, and I tweeted this, Inter Miami has been best this season. Steve, I don't know if you agree with me. Inter Miami has been best this season when backs are against the wall and there's high-pressure situations. I think examples of that are the manner in which Inter Miami has found ways to win multiple games very late, whether it's Gonzalo Higuain scoring a goal or anybody else. They find ways to win games late. And they've also managed to rattle off 4 victories in a row to make the postseason, when that's exactly what, the math was saying that they probably had to do. So when Inter Miami was no longer in this massively pressure-packed situation on Sunday, because they knew they had another game, no matter what happened on Sunday against CF Montreal, they were going to be in the postseason. I think that they took their foot off the pedal too much. They got a little too comfortable, a little too complacent, and that translated to the performance on the field. And I think the first goal illustrates that perfectly, because it's a back pass from Damian Lowe to Drake Callender. Not the best back pass because of where the ball's positioned in terms of Drake Callender's goal. And then Drake Callender takes a touch to the left with his right foot. And he knows pressure's coming. He sees that there's pressure coming, but he still dawdles on the ball a little too much. He dallies a little bit too much. Instead of just smashing the ball upfield, because he knows pressure's there, takes a little bit too long. He looks a little too passive. The ball gets taken from him as he falls to the ground based on the challenge. It's a back pass to Georgi Mihailovic. Easy goal for CF Montreal. A awful mistake, a terrible blunder, a nightmarish gaffe. Do you agree with me? Did Inter Miami take their foot off the pedal too much? Is that something that should not have happened?
No, I mean, they didn't. It wasn't the response you wanted after that emotional night, like you said, on the Wednesday night. But I think they were just beaten by the better team as well. Didn't defended badly. Those opening goals were very, very avoidable. And as soon as they let those in, it just was very sort of damp, and it was actually damp there. But the performance was like a damp squib. They just never really got going at all. So, but I think Montreal were decent. I mean, they were a good side, weren't they? Don't you think?
Absolutely. And I don't want to take any credit away from CF Montreal. They're a good team. They finished second place in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. However, the Inter Miami we saw in that first half, and even over the course of the 90 minutes, is not the Inter Miami we've seen in the previous games. So, again, I think that speaks to the pressure-packed situations when Inter Miami has to respond and Inter Miami has to deliver their best. They do. When they get a little comfortable, they get a little complacent. Not the best version of Inter Miami. Not the best version of Inter Miami, and that has to be addressed and it has to be corrected. I know we're at the end of the season here, but that has to be addressed for next year because you can't get comfortable. And Phil Neville has said that publicly. And in football and soccer, you have to constantly prove yourself. So just because you made the playoffs, okay, yes, you celebrate that. You enjoy that for the night. You enjoy that the next day when you do your recovery session. But then it's, hey, switch gears. Now it's CF Montreal. Now we need to focus on that and try to win that because that can help the team get to a home playoff game. And they delivered a flat performance, a very poor performance. And another sign, again, to me, that the team was a little complacent was that post-game, how would you describe the mood? I won't even describe it. I'll let you describe it, Steve, because you were in there with me. How would you describe the mood in the locker room post-game on Sunday after the 3-1 loss?
I thought they were quite upbeat, really. They were sort of very keen to sort of forget about that game and move on to the next one. We spoke to Yedlin, we spoke to Mabika, we spoke to someone else, Harvey Neville. It was all the same. Yeah, they were all saying the same stuff. But I thought there was music playing. There was almost
Exactly.
Gregory was dancing around.
Exactly. There was a lot of smiles. There was happiness in the locker room despite the fact that they lost, and that to me illustrates that they didn't care that they lost all that much because hey, we're in the playoffs anyway.
Well, there was an element of that.
Absolutely. So, and I think that should not be the case because there was something to play for here, and you could listen. I heard fans after the game. I talked to multiple fans after the game, and fans were like, "Man, they should have played for us. Why did they go and lay this egg?" So there's frustration from fans in that regard. But there was also something for them to play for. And yes, the other result didn't go with them, so it wouldn't have mattered in the end. But the fact that they were smiling and playing music and being very cheerful post-game after a loss in a meaningful game, that to me shows complacency. Because they're like, all right, well, we made the playoffs, so if we lose this game, it doesn't really matter. And look, again, Mabika, when I asked him, he acknowledged it. DeAndre Yedlin did as well when I asked him. Again, Phil Neville in the press conference room acknowledged that there was a bit of a drop-off there. The only player that kind of was like, no, I don't think so, when I asked was Drake Callender. But the other players that I asked, they all said, yeah, they thought there was a bit of a drop-off in intensity, which, again, it can happen. It can happen. You've worked so hard for a goal, and you got that goal. Yeah, you can relax. It can happen where you take your foot off the pedal. But it shouldn't happen, especially with a professional team, because there's another game on the horizon. What? So now Inter Miami, because they made the playoffs, now that they're going to go into Monday and be like, well, whatever, who cares? We got this far. No, they should go for it and have the belief and the conviction that they can do it. And I felt like they took Sunday's game a little bit for granted. I think they took Sunday's game a little bit for granted. They're like, it's an afterthought. It's an afterthought. If we get it, cool. If not, well, it doesn't matter. We're already in the playoffs. And again, great for them that they made the playoffs, but I think that they should have manage this game a bit better. I think that again, just like I gave Phil Neville and stuff and players praise before for the performance against Orlando City, I think they all shoulder some responsibility and some criticism here. It just wasn't good enough, and a bit concerning. And that opened my eyes a little bit because I was like, they were happy. There were smiles all around. It didn't seem like they just came off a loss. Did it seem like they lost the game? No.
Yeah, but it was just put down to a bad performance against a better team, and they lost.
Phil Neville's reaction in his post-game press conference, I think that was more fitting for the moment, right? They lost at home, they lost badly. He was more frustrated about it. Whereas the team just kind of was like, whatever. So, that's just my take, that's my opinion. This was the starting lineup for Inter Miami in this game. Drake Callender in goal. DeAndre Yedlin, Damian Lowe, Ame Mabika, Christopher McVeigh, the back four. It was again the diamond midfield. Gene Mota as the 6, Indiana Vasilev and Gregory as the 2 shuttlers, or the 2 more advanced midfielders, and then you had Robert Taylor as the 10. Up top, Ariel Lassiter replacing the injured Leonardo Campana, and Gonzalo Higuain. So, you've touched on Higuain coming out of the game. with a bit of an injury. We haven't really talked on Ariel Lassiter too much, although I think, his ability to get in behind and stretch defenses, that's definitely been a plus weapon for Inter Miami, and it's helped them this season when, they've needed a different look, or when Campana's gone down, or when Higuain's not been available. Lassiter's not the most polished in terms of his decision-making and final delivery, but, he's been able to perform at a better level than most other wingers. So he's been on a good run of form, so that's nice. Let's touch on very quickly one final thing. Harvey Neville. He came into this game, made his MLS first-team debut with the Herons, and he delivered a very important cross because he races forward in the 85th minute, looks to find a teammate in the penalty area, and just hits a nice stinging low ball on the ground that gets smashed into the back of the net by Joel Waterman, the CF Montreal defender. That goal, although we didn't know it in the moment, that goal ended up pushing Inter Miami into 6th place in the Eastern Conference. Because if they had not scored that goal, if they had lost this game 3-0, based on tiebreakers, and we won't get into all of it, based on tiebreakers, Inter Miami would have finished 7th, Orlando City would have finished 6th. But because of that goal, Inter Miami finished in 6th place. So Harvey Neville with a helping make a big contribution or a big impact there. Your thoughts very quickly on Harvey Neville's debut and obviously helping to set up that goal.
Yeah, well, we spoke to him afterwards, didn't we? It was actually your idea. I wasn't going to speak to him, but of course we had to speak to him. So I don't know what I was thinking about, but
you talk to him enough when Phil comes over. Phil invites you over for coffee at your client meetings, lawyer client privileges
on my yacht. On my yacht.
You and Blaise Matuidi.
Me, Blaise Matuidi on my yacht. Yeah. But no, we spoke to him afterwards. You told him that, didn't you, about the fact that his goal actually made sure they finished in 7th place. And I thought he did well. He went forward. He attacked straight from the start. I think that's what they just told him when they came on, is to try and make a difference. He got forward, down the right, a decent cross in, and it was deflected in. So that was a decent start for him. He contributed something there. It was good. I think, he seems to be like a positive kind of guy. Saw him around the training ground this morning. They were talked a lot, Phil Neville, this morning about the sort of team spirit and Victor Oloa riding. I think they're in San Jose riding scooters around the street while Phil Neville was having a beer. It was all some sort of good stuff, But he said that he knows exactly what his players are doing. All he has to do is just look on Instagram, and he wouldn't want to be a player these days just because every move is sort of documented on social media or whatever. But no, I think there's a good sort of squad harmony there right now. That's what that's what they're saying. So it's probably evident in the last few results.
Harvey Neville, pretty soft spoken, huh? 20 years old, he's still he's pretty soft spoken. Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit nervous, but he sort of grew into it.
More nervous with us than he was on the field. Like on the field, he looked, he looked like more of a seasoned pro. In the interview, you could see that he's still a youngster coming through and still getting adjusted to that part of
it's your expert questioning, mate. That's the easy handling, waiting for those killer questions.
When I did ask him, for you listeners, I did ask him what instructions Phil gave him when he was about to sub him on. Yes. And what did Harvey Neville say that Phil said? Do you remember?
To go and contribute, wasn't it?
No, he said, run. That was it. That was the father to son. I thought I was trying to see if maybe there was some father-son advice. If Harvey was going to give us some golden nugget about what Phil said to him. To like animate him and get him excited. And Harvey was just like, he just told me run. I thought that was hilarious. It was a great delivery, and it was just comical and a good part of the interview for sure. So congrats to Harvey Neville for his debut. Again, wasn't overly involved. Game was, he came in the 79th minute. The game was 3-0 at that point. CF Montreal had taken their foot off the pedal. But again, he has that one run where he races forward and pushes the ball towards the middle, or hits the ball towards the middle. And that helped Inter Miami finish in 6th place, as opposed to being where Orlando is and having to face CF Montreal again. Because if Inter Miami had finished in 7th, they would be playing CF Montreal in Montreal. So maybe that
wouldn't have been good.
That wouldn't have been a good match, right? Especially coming after this, CF Montreal would have been on a very big high, knowing like, hey, we just pummeled them in their home. We can do it again, and Inter Miami being like, well, we just lost, so now it's an uphill battle. The psychology part comes into play there. But anyway, all right. That game was also Gonzalo Higuain's likely last game in South Florida. There's still a chance he could play a playoff game, but certain results have to happen. He was presented with his signed jersey from all his teammates and a plaque by Jorge Mas, and sporting director Chris Henderson. And, he got a standing ovation. Higuain did as he was subbed off the field. Anything you want to add with regards to what was probably his goodbye game here, his Florida farewell?
Yeah, it wasn't his greatest game, was it? But then it wasn't the team's greatest game. He buzzed about a bit, but yeah, a bit of a sad way to go out, I guess, when you look at it like that. But if he can get the winner on Monday night, then it'll be completely different, wouldn't it? Good way to finish.
I thought the pregame ceremony was nice, and just seeing the fans chant for him, give him a standing ovation. Because after the standing ovation, after he was subbed off, the fans chanted, what did they chant? They just chanted, I think they chanted Higuain, or they chanted Pipa Higuain. They chanted something along those lines.
Have they got a song for him? Have they got like a special song for him?
Yeah, I'm trying to I'm blanking on what they said, but they definitely chanted like something with his name. La Familia did. So it was a nice moment, and if that's the last bit we see of him in South Florida as a professional player, then it's a nice moment and a testament to how he has turned this whole thing around. Because let's not forget, last year, he was getting booed by a lot of the same people and jeered by a lot of the same people.
Right.
So,
and I'll tell you something as well. I watched the other day on Twitter, they had a compilation of his best goals at Real Madrid. You should watch that if you've got any idea of the kind of career that he's had. Some of the goals, absolutely sensational. Which you kind of forget about that time in Madrid, but he's brilliant.
Who's forgotten about his time in Madrid?
No. I mean, when you move, he's playing here now. You forget. I certainly forgot that he'd been at Madrid and had such an amazing career. But reminded by it by watching those goals. And it's some amazing, brilliant goals. Great player, amazing player.
Okay, well, we've talked a whole bunch. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back for a very short Q&A session and our final thoughts. We'll do that after this. Alright guys, it's Q&A time. I will read two questions. One will not be answered because Jose Armando is not here, although both are kind of directed at Jose Armando. Jose Armando's popular this week. One comes from Don Cafecito. Can someone please tell Jose Armando that Miami FC is not a thing anymore? That's the question. Obviously, Jose has been a very big advocate of Miami FC. He's talked about them on the pod in his final thoughts on multiple occasions. Clearly now with Inter Miami making the playoffs, there's more shine on Inter Miami, and it's a dig at Jose. Jose's not here to defend himself. He did on Twitter a little bit, but I'll wait till he's back on for him to defend himself a little bit more thoroughly. You can only do so in 160 characters or 140 characters on Twitter. So, all right, the next question comes from Endo, and he says, "Any update on Jose Armando's Football Manager? Also, when we beat New York City FC, how far of a run can we make? Granted that we have a fully fit squad." Steve, Jose's not here to provide us an update on his Football Manager, so how about you? Provide us an update. Let's go. What team are you coaching now? Are you on your 18th team in 12 years?
It's been an emotional journey, man. I was manager of Tranmere in the League 2 of England, so it's like the bottom professional league. Got promotion next season, almost got in the playoffs, went to the final game, didn't get in. Made a bad start in the third season, and now I'm manager of Man City. Yeah, I couldn't resist it. I just wanted to I did the hard yards. For 2.5 seasons is hard, so I just wanted to have like a team of amazing players, and I'm just attacking. And brilliant. De Bruyne, superb. Foden, Bernardo Silva. Some amazing players. You have like a lot of money as well. So, but the new game is coming out soon. Start on November. So like the Football Manager community is getting very excited. There's some new additions to the game. Like you can have like a squad planner now. So any players that you're targeting, you can kind of put together in like a team which you would sort of pin up on the wall as my dream sort of team or what you want in the future. So yeah.
I may get that version because now I think Inter Miami will have their pink jersey. So that I was kind of, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of waiting for that so I could do an Inter Miami file, but I needed them to have the pink jersey, not the white one that they had in last year.
So you can change it, you can mod it up and change it, but yeah.
I want the real one though. I want the real one. Like I need some authenticity. Like it just helps my gaming experience.
No, I agree. I totally agree with that. I spent hours trying to sort out the badges the other day, but I eventually sorted it out. So.
All right. Well, the second part of Endo's question is like, when we beat NYCFC, how far of a run can we make? Granted that we have a fully fit squad. Well, it's not guaranteed that Inter Miami has a fully fit squad, but I'll answer the question first. Steve, you can go next. Look, it's the MLS Cup playoffs or the MLS playoffs. Any team practically can go on a run and make it to MLS Cup, and then if you make it that far, why not dream of winning it all? But if you're asking me, objectively, I would say I see them, if everything goes well and they get the bounces and they produce high performance levels, I see this team maxing out at the Eastern Conference Final. That's where I think they could get to if things go really well for them in this postseason. I don't see them making MLS Cup. They could, but I don't. If I had to predict, I wouldn't say that they make it that far. I think Eastern Conference Final. I think that would be a very huge accomplishment for this team, and I think that's where they could get to again if things go their way and if they play well. Steve, I already know what you're going to say.
It's knockout football, baby. Anything can happen.
So the answer is,
who knows? I mean, I just think in a one-off game, if they can, as he said, if they can keep everybody fit, and they've got a chance. I mean, they have in a one-off game. I think they've got nothing to lose. I think getting to the Eastern Conference Final would be a fantastic achievement, but I think they're going to have a really hard game on Monday night. I think it's going to be pretty difficult.
Steve, answer the question. Assuming they beat NYCFC, end this question. Assuming Inter Miami beats NYCFC, how far of a run can Inter Miami make?
I think they get to the semi-finals.
Okay, so they would play one more game and that's it.
One more game, yeah.
Wow, I was more optimistic than you. Look at that. That's impressive. I did not expect that. I thought you were going to say MLS Cup for sure. But okay.
No, I don't know. I'm not that confident about Monday, but I want to be. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game.
Your crystal ball is not
No, yeah. I don't know. So
your fortune telling's not
I mean,
not giving off good vibes.
If it was at Red Bull Arena, they'd be winning like at least 12-0. But because it's not.
Okay.
It's at Citi Field where they can score loads of home runs. Actually, Phil jibed at Jose today because Jose was wearing a San Diego Giants baseball shirt, and Phil thought he was actually taking the piss.
No! You got to tell me that story. You have got to tell me that story. But hold on, it's not San Diego Giants. It's either San Diego Padres or San Francisco Giants. What are you doing there, my friend? What are you doing?
No, San Francisco Giants. Okay. I said that.
All right. No, you said San Diego.
Giants. San Diego Padres. Sorry, no, we were talking about the San Diego and the Padres as well. But in this instance, he was wearing a black San Francisco Giants shirt.
Unbelievable, that host.
To a press conference.
Unbelievable. We're gonna have to scold him later.
Yeah, and then Phil thought it was like a sort of nasty little jibe. Maybe it was.
Jose always pushing the envelope like he does on the podcast. All right, let's leave it there for the Q&A session. Quickly, our final thoughts, and I'm going to make this all encompassing to wrap up the show, will be on the Inter Miami media game, the first ever one in 3 years. We finally had a media game. There were drills that Phil Neville helped guide initially, and there was like a turnout of about a dozen or so of us media members. It all ended, we also had some shooting drills, which Jose did really, really well on. Not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and say, Steve or I were the best. No, Jose was probably the best finisher in terms of the shooting drills. Then we played we did some other drills, and then, like some 50-50 drills and things like that. But then we finished with a 6-on-6 game. Steve, what do you want to say about that game? Do you want to talk about your horrendous miss that I talked about in the intro?
Well, I will talk about that first. It was a good ball. It was a good ball from you on the right, and as it came over, Federico Higuain was in goal, and I was just like, I'm going to miss this, and I should have scored. I was about 2 yards out, and my header was just pathetic. I mean, I think it flicked off my nose. It was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. I did make up, and then I kept going through. I started playing at the back. I wasn't that good. It was hot, man, wasn't it? It was hot.
It was very hot. It was
super
and we were
hot.
clearly out of shape. Clearly,
But yeah, we were good. We were good, man. There were other people that were maybe sort of struggling physically as well. But I think we kept going until the end. It was hot.
We kept trying.
We were helped by one of the under-13 coaches who was a top guy, who was really funny. It was funny to play with Federico Higuain. He was in goal. We were doing loads of shooting practice and stuff. We were given a tour of the training facility. But yeah, the actual playing is hard, man. It's hard, especially in the heat.
Do you want to share?
I don't play a lot. Really, I used to play a lot. I don't play it really anymore at all, and I don't really miss playing. But it was good fun, and I did score, and you did cross it in.
I did set you up. It was a Miami Total Football radio connection there from Panizo to Brenner. But I have to add a couple more comments or some commentary to your horrendous miss, because yes, it was across from myself on the right flank, and I found you at the back post, wide open, and that ball, it was coming down at a good pace, like not super hard, not super slow, coming down at a good pace, and it was like, it felt like the play was in slow motion, at least from my vantage point. Like, it's there for Steve to head it in at the back post unmarked from in close. Like, it was an expected goal, right? Like, if you did expected goals, which I don't do, but I would say it was a sitter, right? You would consider that a sitter. Oh. But somehow, I don't know if Steve, I guess Steve just explained it mentally how he was processing the play, and if he had no confidence that he was going to put it in, well, then it's not a surprise that he completely mucked it up and it hit off of his nose. Well, I'm saying, like, if you didn't believe in your head that, like, you could finish it, then I understand now why.
And that's the wrong mentality for me to have.
Exactly.
Moving forward.
Exactly. And what did Federico Higuain tell you after you hit the side netting instead of hitting the wide open goal that you had all of to shoot at?
He said, it's not easy. It's not easy. I said, yes, it is easy. I definitely should have scored 100%. I don't care. He's a professional. And he was quality, though. He was brilliant with us. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome to play with him.
No, Federico. It's easy. I should have scored. You're now laughing at me as well, so that's even worse.
Steve was like, no, it is easy. I'm just terrible, essentially. I was bawling. I had a smile like Ronaldinho, like that Ronaldinho type smile. I'm not comparing my skills to Ronaldinho at all. Don't get that confused. But I just had such a good time playing. Hopefully next year's edition of the media game is a little bit, it's bigger, it's longer, so that way we can play. Because I think we played for like 15, 20 minutes or so. So the scoreline was I don't listen. The other team claimed that they won. Federico Higuain's claimed that they won 5-4. I don't think so, and listen, I would tell you something straight up. Like, even when I was a kid, if I was getting my butt whooped, I like to be the score counter, because if somebody has to keep track. Because if you don't, then it starts getting into like, oh, no, it's this score. So I've always kept track, and I've always been honest about it. I'm pretty sure we won 4-3. I'm pretty sure. And listen, Chris Whittingham was on our team, and Chris Whittingham, I think, is one of the most straight up dudes. And even he tweeted, I'm not so sure that scoreline's correct, that the one that they put out there that they won 5-4. I don't think that was it. I think we came back and won 4-3. The beginning of the game, we were trying to build up out of the back, but we couldn't build out of the back. We kept making mistakes, and they pounced on a few of those and scored early goals. We looked like Inter Miami against CF Montreal. And then we said, you know what? Forget playing out of the back and trying to play like nice little short passing. Let's like go higher up and let's try to win some 50-50s and attack that way. And that helped us get back into the game, because then that made them, the opposing team, Federico Higuain's team, have to, they had to cover more ground now. And then they were getting tired, and there was a lot of spaces. I mean, so listen, I think we won that game, but whatever. There was controversy at the facility over that final score. I will share this part. I scored on Federico Higuain on one play. I scored a goal where like I rounded him, and it was slow motion round. I'm not like, I didn't like, take him like, but Rafa Cabrera, who's Inter Miami's PR guy, who played with us, he like looked at Federico with like a face like, come on, man, you could have stopped that. And Federico's like, ¿qué? Like, what? Like, what do you want me to do? And I look at Federico, and again, I'm smiling. Like, I just had such a good time. I look at him, and I'm like, clearly he wanted you to two-foot slide tackle me there, because that's the only thing you could have done to stop me and prevent me from getting around you, just because it's a clear one-on-one chance. So it was good fun. Hopefully we can do it again next year.
100%. Thank you to Inter Miami for putting it on and just taking us around the training ground.
No doubt. And listen. The Inter Miami took the whole professional approach to it. They took pictures of us. There's action shots of us. It was pretty neat. Hopefully we get to do it again next year. But anyway, that does it for this week's show. We've talked quite a bit and about a lot of different items. So we'll leave it there. We will be back next week to recap the game against NYCFC, regardless of the result. So we'll see if Inter Miami's playoffs continue or if they come to an end and we start thinking ahead to 2023. We'll see what happens. So for Steve Brenner and Primo, I am Franco Panizo. You've been listening to Miami Total Football Radio, aka Miami Total Football Radio, and we'll talk to you guys again very, very soon.